In the following demonstration, I'm going to walk you through some sketch constraints, and basically what I'm going to show you here is how to follow this profile of this sketch here all the way around. And then we have a reference line and we create an extrusion. So before we get started with the demonstration, one of the things that I want to mention is if you go into File and you select Utilities and go under Customers Default and be sure that you select a sketch, you will see that this Create Inferior Constraints is toggled on. And basically this option determines whether or not inferior constraints should be created during curve creation. And we're going to do this by just going to select leave this on for right now. Just be sure that you have it on. OK is not available, but if yours is OK, is available, you have to hit OK, and you have to log off and log back in. I'm going to cancel out for right now. And if we go under Format Layer Settings, we turn off layer number 1 and we leave layer number 10 as the work layer. So we close here, and I'm going to go and rotate my view to the isometric. We're going to take the WCS and rotate it 90 degrees. And you have two options. You can go here under Insert, a Sketch in Task Environment to create a sketch, or you can just simply toggle the icon down below here, Sketch in Task Environment. In either case, it will put you into the sketch mode. While you are in the sketch mode, the first thing that I'm asking you to do is to change the name of the sketch. So we use SK_profile and we hit enter. Remember to always hit enter. We're going to leave it on plane. The plane method is going to be inferior, reference horizontal, and we're going to create intermediate dot on scissors. The first thing that displays is the profile. The option for profile, which is actually the strain mode. We indicate one end of the line and approximate the other end. Have a rubber band condition here, which is I'm going to hit escape to that so we can start at the other end. And I'm just going to be very rough here with creating this line. I'm not going to put it a vertical. I'm just going to make rough lines. I'm not going to make that parallel either. I'm just going to put it at an angle so in that way I can demonstrate later on how to apply the constraints. Leave that one horizontal line. Create another one on here. And I'm going to hit escape at this moment so I can go into creating another line, stay in the line mode, and hit OK, and now I can switch to arc. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to point in a space and only grab one end of those lines so I can leave the difference between these 2 points here, and later on I can demonstrate how it works when applying the constraints. So we're going to move forward. We have 49 constraints to take care of. And I'm going to show you the geometrical constraints first. There is a coincident, constraints 2 or more vertices. There is an option for point and curve. And we have an option here for establishing tangency between a line and an arc, or between 2 arcs. Constraints 2 arcs. Parallel, constraints 2 or more curves to be parallel to each other. We have another one here, it's called perpendicular. Constraints 2 curves to be perpendicular to each other. And we have more icons here. Horizontal, constraints 1 or more lines to be horizontal to each other. We have one more, it's called for vertical. So you can create vertical lines, constraining one more line to be to another midpoint. Constrain a vertex or point to be aligned with the midpoint of a line. Collinear constrains two or more lines to be collinear with each other. Concentric constrains two circles. Equal lengths takes care of two lines, and equal radius take care of two radiuses or two arcs. So now we have under settings basically the same nomenclature here for coincident point and curve, perpendicular, horizontal, and so on. I'm going to close this palette for a second, and I'm going to take you to another palette, Show Remove Constraints. Basically, it displays the geometric constraints associated with selected sketch geometry, and also remove some of the constraints. As you can see here right now, I have a toggle under All in Active Sketch. I can toggle back and forth between them, but notice that under Show Constraint there is no constraints showing. There's another icon here, it's called Auto Constraints, and sets the type of geometric constraints that are applied automatically to the sketch. So if we select that, we can see here that the curves to the constraint could be horizontal, vertical, tangent, parallel, perpendicular, and so on. But these are the most common: horizontal, vertical, tangent, parallel, and perpendicular, and coincident. Notice that the OK and the Apply buttons are not available, but if I box in the curves of the geometry, then it would become available. So then I can go ahead and hit OK. And after I have done that, notice that the number of constraints had dropped. And if we go back to Show Remove Constraints, we did have created some constraints automatically. So that saves us a tremendous amount of time by creating those constraints automatically by just boxing, and then we have some coincident points. If we had taken one at a time, it would take us a long time. So going back again to geometrical constraints, we see the degree of freedom symbols, those red arrowheads. And if I select one line and put a vertical and select another one here and select parallel, and select those two lines, you can see establish a parallel line with each other. There is a green line here, so something it did not like, I did not select it correctly. But I have 25 constraints here, and I'm going to select this one here so you see what happened. It deforms the geometry. When this happens, it's because I'm moving too fast, so you might slow down and do an undo. Try it again, and then you had two parallel lines to where you wanted. Select those two lines and make them parallel to each other. So now we can establish a perpendicularity between this line and that line. Notice how they straight off each other. On this one here, we're going to go into collinear. Select one line, select the other one, and we make it collinear. And if we notice, we had 20 constraints to go. And show you what happened between these 2 points. So I have vertical line, I have a horizontal line, I have established parallel lines between those. I have parallel line between those two, parallel line between these, and perpendicularity between those two. So I'm going to close this for right now, and I'm going to demonstrate by how I select. See, if I move my arc, it gives me the flexibility because it's not constrained. Only one end is constrained. As you can see, I can stretch it on all the geometry moves. The same thing here. The same thing if I move this geometry. That means it's fully constrained there, because everything is coincident and so on. So I have 20 constraints to go. If I select the endpoint of this arc, and I'm carefully be sure that I select the endpoint of that line, I can establish a coincident point between those 2 points. So now I have established more tightness between all of that geometry. I have 18 constraints. So we're going to establish some fillets now by just selecting the fillet option and select here fillet. I'm going to select that line and that line here and create another fillet. and close this for right now. And we got 30 constraints that we need to go. Well, we have pretty much established most of the geometrical constraints, but we're running out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish here the sketch for right now on this section of the videos and save the part. And I'm going to stop here now, so we'll continue again.